Hello, welcome to day 11 of the 21 Day Self-Transformation Challenge, Finding Purpose. Today we're going to continue along the process we started this week of really digging deep into ourselves, into our wounds, into our shadow side or our ego side, with the goal and intention of bringing that more to the light and integrating it so that we're operating more authentically and more from a place of wholeness and a much more peaceful, enlightened place. And today we're tackling a big topic, which is non-judgment. And it's a very crucial part of this process. And I'll be honest, I have work to do around non-judgment myself. So I think we all do. And it's a difficult topic. And it's one that I've kind of struggled a little bit to put together the way that I want it to. So I'm just going to try to work through this today. So one thing I want to make clear is when I'm talking about judgment, I'm not talking about making a decision about something or a step that you have to take or something, let's say, your child has to do or what's best for here or there. You know, there's aspects of discernment and decision making that aren't judgment. When I'm talking about judgment, I'm talking about having a situation happen or seeing a person or a thing and making assigning a value to it of being good or bad, or right or wrong, or fair or unfair. And that creates an attachment to that event. And attachments are what keep us from living more peaceful life, because with attachments come expectations. So, you know, when you're stepping into that place of judgment, it looks like attaching a value to something as being right or wrong, or better than or worse than. So this is the place that I'm coming from today when I'm talking about judgment. And I'm not a big Bible quoter, but I do study the teachings of Jesus, and one of my favorites of his quotes is, "Judge not, lest ye be judged." And really what he's referring to there is the inner world, and he knows that, or he's telling us that, when we judge someone else, really what we're doing is judging ourselves, because we are seeing a reflection of ourselves in them. And I also love that saying that is, your perception of me is a reflection of you. And I love that. So you see this over and over and over again. People judging you, or you hear about people judging you, or you know that they're judging you. They tell you they're judging you, and they're assigning all these ridiculous things that you're doing from their perception, and they couldn't be further from the truth. And you do the same thing. We all do it. You know, we see a situation or a person and we project our own experience or our own way of thinking into that situation, and we judge what is going on, again, for right or for wrong, and typically assume that we know better, right? It's pretty much the way it goes. So it's really important to grasp that concept that when you step into judgment around a person or a situation and you catch yourself doing it, know that it's reflecting something about yourself to you in some way, shape, or form. You're typically hitting on some kind of wound, because if you weren't hitting on a wound, you wouldn't react to that situation at all. You wouldn't react to the words. You would have no reaction. So, you know, this is a really key aspect of non-judgmentalness, and the importance really of having self-compassion around this issue, because really what non-judgment is just acceptance. You don't have to love it, like it. It's just to accept it. When something happens and you feel triggered, you know, it's about stepping back and saying, just accepting it for what it is. But at the same time, you're acknowledging the feelings and moving through the process of the feelings without attaching a right or wrong aspect to it. Really, really hard to do, because we're all conditioned this way. It's an ego trick for survival, because if something happens that is a negative and threatens your survival, the ego associates with that, and so next time anything that looks like that, you're triggered for your own survival. So in one sense, you know, the ego does its job of trying to protect you and trying to protect the self. But on the other hand, it starts tracking into all these things that have absolutely nothing to do with whatever that past situation was. And this is where we get caught up in anxiety and stress and worry. We're taking on these issues, giving away our personal power in these situations where we're judging someone or something, or even worse, judging ourselves. I mean, we are typically our own worst critics by far and away. And the self-compassion and the self-acceptance, that unconditional, that's the unconditional love aspect of this, which is key for this whole thing. So it is really a big topic. And when you get into a situation, like I said, it's about acknowledging I'm having this experience and I'm feeling this way. And absolutely everything that you're doing is valid, and everything that you're feeling is valid. Not by any way, shape, or form should you invalidate the experience that you're having. It's more about just not attaching to that experience, not making it bigger than it is, not giving away your power by stepping into victimhood if you happen to be the injured party in this case, or projecting out victimhood onto someone else. You don't know how they're reacting in that situation. And when you're seeing something, where this gets really complicated is when you see something awful that's happening, right? When if it's war, murder, whatever situation that looks really awful, that's really where you can test yourself in your non-judgment, and in the acceptance of seeing the situation, and acknowledging how you feel about that situation without attaching judgment or victimhood or blame in the situation. Because the truth of the matter is, when we project into it, it's only a story about ourselves, because if it's something that we're seeing, we aren't involved in the situation. We're projecting into it. Or even in the situation where you may be a victim, even harder, right? Even harder. And I've seen some really amazing transformations of people who could spend the rest of their life having had this horrible experience and just stuck in victimhood and blaming, and never having the courage to kind of step out and take leadership and control over a situation, and transforming their greatest wound to being one of their greatest assets. I've seen this transformation in people, and it's just about this bit of stepping out of non-judgment and being able to accept and experience an emotion. And this is what really empowers you to kind of step out of the judgmental aspect and move yourself forward into a space where you're creating instead of just stalled and stuck and non-movement. So this is my commentary on non-judgment, and like I said, I definitely am working through this myself still in my life, and I try to catch myself. I don't always do great at it. I have the best experiences really when I'm in traffic. It's a great time for me to practice non-judgment, because I can get a little tense in traffic. So I just try to practice non-judgment when I'm driving and go, oh, why, they must have to be to the hospital. They must be a new driver. They must not understand the rules of the road. If I see an older person or a very young driver, I'm completely at ease. There's no tension whatsoever around anything that they might do. They're allowed to make mistakes, but no one else is. So, this is for me just an example, a quick example, a little easier one of where I'm working on practicing non-judgment. And, and I do the same in aspects when I look at, like, say, world conflicts. And I have the understanding that it's not about the people. It's about the governments creating these conflicts, because when you get to the people, we're all the same, and we all feel the same way about these things. So rather than judging them as wrong, it's about having compassion for each other in the situations that we're all in. And again, so this is my thoughts on the matter, and I hope that it's helpful. And if you have any comments, please feel free to put them below on non-judgment or tricks that you use for stepping out of non-judgment. It's all about mindfulness and being aware. And again, I'm just going to end with this. Your perception of me is nothing but a reflection of you. Have a really fabulous day.